Bears are part and parcel of living in the rural communities in British Columbia. But when they start trying to break into your home, then something needs to be done about them. But one First Nations elder had vowed to protect them and refused to have them removed from her property, something that proved fatal, not for the bears, but for the woman herself. Hit that like button and subscribe right now. This is the terrifying bear attack on Bernice Evelyn Adolph. Welcome to Final Affliction. Respected Zaxlip elder Bernice Evelyn Adolph was 72 years old. She was an active member of the First Nations community in Canada's British Columbia. As an elder, Bernice's decisions were respected within the community. On many occasions, she came across bears on her property. They were growing bolder by the day, and some even attempted to enter her home. But when tribal police offered to step in and destroy or relocate the nuisance bears, Bernice insisted that they left them alone. Bears were part of her people. They were part of the very nature that she believed they should protect. But the regular occurrence of the bears should have served as a stark warning that there was danger just around the corner. In British Columbia, there are estimated to be around 15,000 grizzly bears and more than 120,000 black bears. Although bear attacks across Canada are relatively rare, they are most likely to occur in Alberta and British Columbia, owing to their large bear populations. Chief Art Adolph of the Zaxlip community knew that ignoring the bears was dangerous, but he needed to respect the elder's wishes. She was very popular within the community, with many calling her aunt and looking up to her. But even she was growing anxious about the bears. Just before the fateful day, she asked tribal police to remove a nuisance bear peacefully and without harm. When she was told that it would be better to shoot the bear, she told them to leave them alone. Those were her final wishes, and nobody knows exactly what happened after that, but it was a brutal and tragic ending. It was June 2011, and Bernice hadn't been heard from for several days. Her daughter was growing increasingly worried for her mother's welfare. She hadn't been able to contact her and called upon tribal police to scout out her property. When officers arrived, there was no answer at the door, although there were suspicious marks on the framework. They looked like the claw marks of a bear. It had tried to get inside the house, either considering Bernice herself as prey or to investigate food inside the home. When officers scoured the garden for any other signs, one of their police dogs began barking. They released it, and it immediately ran off into the surrounding scrub. The officers followed it closely, and that's when they found a body. It was badly mauled, hardly recognizable, and it was partially concealed under a pile of pine needles and dirt. The bear, or bears, were planning on returning and finishing the meal. Nobody knows for sure how Bernice died. Some suggested, or at least hoped, that she may have passed away and then her body was consumed by bears. But sadly, when the autopsy was performed, it was found that she was killed by the bears themselves. The injuries she sustained were consistent with a bear attack, and it seemed that it was likely a predatory attack. Between grizzly and black bears are more likely to carry out a predatory attack, and the majority of fatal black bear attacks are predatory in nature. It is very difficult to defend yourself against such a large predator that considers you as prey. A likely scenario was that Bernice was outside on her property when a predator detected her from a distance away. As Bernice was in her garden, the black bear approached. Stealthily, it moved through the trees, moving silently over the undergrowth. Bernice would have been unaware of the approaching danger. She would have only seen the bear when it was too late. She was just 150 yards away from the safety of her house, but that was too far for her to run. Reaching top speeds of 35 miles per hour, it's impossible to outrun a charging bear. Instead, Bernice braced herself for the attack as the bear launched itself at her. It instinctively went for her face and neck, its long canines delivering devastating blows. Bernice tried to protect herself, clasping her hands around the back of her neck. With each swipe of its paw, the bear's claws ripped through her skin. The attack was brutal and relentless. All the protection she had provided for the bears, insisting that they were not harmed or removed from her property, counted for nothing as she was savagely attacked by the hungry bear. Although she put up a brave fight, Bernice succumbed to her injuries. She died alone, surrounded by the natural world that she felt at one with. The bear began its feast, and when it had its fill, it tried to bury Bernice, flicking pine needles and twigs onto her body, digging at the loose soil and covering her with it. The bear had now concealed her, something it planned to come back to later. But other bears had smelt the fresh kill and were drawn to the area. They rooted around in the undergrowth, following the scent of the body. They too tucked in, and by the time officers discovered Bernice, her body was in such a bad state that her identity needed to be confirmed using dental records. It was a gruesome and truly horrific discovery. Whilst the others in the community felt guilty for not having taken care of the bears before, they knew that it had been Bernice's wish. During the summer months, encounters between people and bears are more likely across North America and Canada. More people are out and about due to the weather, and bears are foraging in the wilderness. The year that Bernice was tragically killed had been an unusually wet spring. As a result, there were plentiful grass and berry harvests. Wildlife officers in the province had reported fewer complaints that season from bear encounters, as bears were less inclined to wander into communities to find food. Unfortunately for Bernice, however, this wasn't the case. Immediately, traps were set up to catch the bear or bears responsible. If a bear had killed a person in a predatory attack, then it was likely that it would attack again. Snares were deployed, carefully placed along well-worn bear paths around Bernice's property, and officers scoured the area from the skies, flying a helicopter low over the trees to track down any bears in the vicinity. There were plenty around. In the days following Bernice's death, a total of 5 bears were caught and euthanized. Officials knew that it was likely that they would have fed on Bernice's remains, even if they weren't responsible for her death, and that can be dangerous. Once they have a taste for human flesh, they are more likely to see people as prey. DNA analysis was carried out to determine whether they had caught the bear responsible. The saliva from one of those they euthanized matched saliva found on Bernice's clothing. Just 1 week after the tragic and fatal attack on Bernice, a man was badly mauled by a grizzly whilst picking berries along the coastline in British Columbia. Luckily, he survived. However, the 2 serious attacks sparked concern amongst locals. Steve Mitchell, who worked as a human-wildlife conflict specialist for Parks Canada in Banff, reiterated the advice for bear encounters. Most attacks are defensive. The bear is protecting its food, young, or has been startled and caught unaware. In this case, a person who comes face-to-face with a bear must try to prevent the urge to run. This will likely spark an innate reaction in the bear to pursue you. Instead, remain calm and back away slowly. If a bear is actively hunting you, then the outcome is often far worse, and usually the person doesn't see the bear approaching. They stalk their prey silently, creeping closer until they pounce. Predatory attacks are considered extremely rare, particularly by grizzlies, but in this instance, a person must fight back. The bears near Bernice's property had expressed an interest in her before. Their presence had been noted several times before, and there were clear indications that they had tried to break into her home. Rather than being frightened by people, the bears were drawn to them, eyeing Bernice for a rare predatory attack that took her to her terrifying final affliction.